It's BC, before COVID. I've just finished a East Coast tour and my last stop is in Miami. I'm having dinner with a good friend of mine and my wife, Serica, a lady by the name of Chim Francisco. Chim is the district director of the Southern Miami Toastmasters organization. I've spoken at her conference, plus she's also hooked me up with 2 keynote speeches with Fortune 500 companies. We're having a good time. All of a sudden, Chim asked me, she says, Ed, would you mind speaking at the Everglades Correctional Institute? I said, what's that? She said, it's a prison. I said, no. She says, Ed, not to worry, you'll be perfectly safe. We have a Toastmasters club. It's called the Gavel Toastmasters Club, and it's a privilege to be a member of this Toastmasters club. No one wants to lose any of their privileges. You will be, these are the best behaved inmates in the prison. You'll be perfectly safe. I'm feeling a little obligated to say yes, and I eventually do. As we're leaving the restaurant, Chim says to me one more thing. She says, oh yeah, by the way, Ed, before you come to the prison tomorrow, make sure you don't wear any cologne or aftershave. And I said, well, why? She says, well, because these men have been locked up for a long time and they have a heightened sense of smell. When I get into the rent-a-car, my wife is laughing so hard, I think she's having a seizure. At one point in time, she actually reaches into her purse, she takes out a little Chanel No. 5, and she sprays me and she says, hey, let's give him a little something, something, Ed. I don't think it's funny at all. Anyway, later on, I Google the Everglades Correctional Institute. As it turns out, it is a level 5 prison. To give you some context, the highest level of prisons is a supermax, and that's a level 6, where we had John Gotti and Al Capone. This prison is like, well, it's like Diet Coke. It has all the danger, but none of the celebrities. Anyway, we make it early to the prison, and we have this thing, it is called a safety briefing. Now, they should call the safety briefing what you should do in case there is a prison riot. And I'm saying to myself, WTF. But the guy says, hey, not to worry, riots are rare. Riots are rare here. And then he hands me this device. It looks like a garage door opener. And I said, what is this thing? And he says, it is a body alarm. I says, what is a body alarm? He says, well, in case you're in jeopardy, you push this button, it shuts down the prison, and the other guards will come running to the rescue. I says, okay, well, let's test this sucker out. He says, no, don't push the button. I says, well, why not? He says, because if you push the button, it will shut down the prison and all the guards will come running to the rescue. And I'm thinking, we need to test this sucker out. You know, let's have a drill. You know, it's better to be ready than to get ready. Don't you agree? He says, don't push the button. I said, well, what about the batteries? I mean, it's April. Did you guys change the batteries in January 1st like you're supposed to? Hey, we're in South Beach. We know how you guys like to party, all right? What happens if the person who had my body alarm forgot to change the batteries? He was hungover. What happens with that? And what type of batteries are in here? Are they Everready? Duracell? Oh God, please don't tell me they are the lowest bidder batteries. Don't tell me that the batteries in my body alarm are the lowest bidder batteries. Are you kidding me? Sir, don't push the button. I gather my rare riot notes and we walk off to the meeting room. Now, in my mind, I imagined it was something like an episode from Law and Order. You know, when they take the inmates to Rikers Island, there would be this wall, this bulletproof glass, 8 feet thick, and the inmates would be on that side and I would be on this side. That's not how it was. It was more like an episode of The Property Brothers. They had an open plan. It was 20 yards deep, 15 yards wide. There was no glass, no bars, no protection. And on top of that, they only had one guard and 250 inmates. And I saw that he had a pistol, but he didn't have 250 rounds. And I'm thinking to myself, can I press the body alarm now? Because this is the definition of jeopardy. The guy says, don't press the button. So finally, I make it to the podium. And I'm looking at these 250 inmates. Now, the warden had actually selected a presentation from my website. He says, okay, you're approved to talk about this particular topic. And this particular topic, I have PowerPoint slides, I have videos, I have music. And I looked at these prisoners, and I said to myself, these guys probably don't do PowerPoint. So I decided to turn it into a Q&A session. At that point in time, a young man who's about 25 years old, he stands up and he says to me, I'm going to be out on parole next week. How is life going to be for me on the outside? I looked at him and I looked at all the prisoners and I said, do I have your permission to speak frankly? He said, yes. I said, it's going to be awful for you. It's going to be 10 times harder for you just to get a menial job because you have a scarlet letter. And even though you have paid your debt to society, you're going to be paying that for the rest of your life. Now, you got two options. Option number one, you can do what you did to get here in the first place. And there's an 80% probability that will take place over the next 9 years. It's either that or you'll die. Or you can fight, not with your fist, but with your mind. For example, Abraham Lincoln, he lost repeatedly in terms of elections. And he became the 16th president of the United States. How many of you have had Kentucky Fried Chicken? Well, Colonel Sanders, he didn't start that until his late 60s, and it took him 1,000 no's before someone said yes. And Thomas Edison, 10,000 experiments before he finally found that filament that actually made the light bulb. You have to be prepared to take 10,000 no's, because if you're not prepared to take 10,000 no's, you're going to spend 10,000 days in this prison or a coffin. Fast forward a month later. In the mail, I get this book. It's 47 handwritten letters from the inmates. And one of them says, coming into a prison can be a scary thing. Most people wouldn't even think about it twice walking into a prison, much less talk to a group of inmates. You know, my friend, Jim, she turned out to be a good friend after all.